It's no secret that the condition of Western women is actually quite poor. We can just see it very obviously. If you look at any podcast show or any post on social media, they're most likely full of women doing OnlyFans. They're also most likely full of women not accepting responsibility for certain things. And in some quarters, these posts are full of women who are not brave enough to define what a woman actually means.
What is a woman?
Bro.
This is $1 million question.
Don't even bother asking Aaron that question. You're just going to get another question.
A woman seems to be somebody who presents as a woman, who acts as a woman societally.
Can you provide a definition for the word woman?
Can I provide a definition?
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
I can't. I'm not a biologist.
Of the word.
Now, of course, I'm making generalizations. This is not every woman. There are plenty of women who have the right idea of what being a woman actually means, what being feminine actually means. And this is a much deeper conversation that can be compressed in this kind of video. But this video exists against a bigger cultural backdrop that we have to understand before we can get to the nitty-gritty of going on. And my contention in this video is going to be that feminism is actually the driving force behind so much of the insanity we see from a lot of women today, because it has convinced them of ideas that are not just fundamentally untrue, but are also antagonistic to others in society, particularly men. And we'll get into that as well. But if we're going to understand feminism, we have to understand feminism in stages. There are about 4 stages of feminism. I will summarize them before going into a deeper discussion of them. There is first wave feminism. That was the kind of feminism in which women sought to have equal rights to men. Then there is second wave feminism. That was the kind of feminism where women sought to get special privileges over men. Then we have third wave feminism. That was the kind of feminism where women sought to extend those special privileges throughout society and blended them with woke ideals. Then we have fourth wave, the current wave that we're in, feminism. That was the kind of feminism that was a continuation of third wave feminism, just for the internet age. So, I'm going to focus primarily on second wave and third wave feminism, because I believe they're the most consequential forms of feminism to what we're seeing today in society, but I will give a brief overview of all of these periods. So the first wave feminism. The first wave feminism was concerned with the cultural appreciation of women at that time. At the time of the first wave feminism, the Victoria era was the idea, shaped the ideas that so many people had of women. Back then, women in 1850 could not vote in Europe. They could not initiate divorce. They could not control custody of their children in a case of divorce. They could not pursue higher education. They could not open bank accounts in their own names. They could not maintain ownership of inherited property after marriage. They could not initiate lawsuits or serve as legal witnesses. So if something bad happened to you and a woman was the only witness, she couldn't really help you. And they could not maintain control over their own wages if they worked and they were married. Domestic violence was quite ubiquitous back then. Actually, it was actually an accepted part of life back then. And so, during the Seneca Falls Convention, the first wave feminists basically argued that there were a bunch of rights that men have that women do not have that they wanted to secure and fight for. The most common of their arguments was the right to vote. They wanted the right to vote because they believed that that meant they had equal participation in society. But of course, there are many other rights that women wanted to have. Then we go over to the second wave feminism. Second wave feminism basically took that struggle for rights and instead said women need to have more authority and more privileges in society. The second wave had this really strange idea, which actually I think is the source of so much of the confusion that we see in society today around gender, around sex, around proper behavior, and that is the idea called the personal is political. This idea basically said that women were so disadvantaged in society that merely getting equal rights was not enough, and that we should instead view the family itself as a political structure, and women should then therefore attempt to use power to get control over the family, control over the man, because everything is political. Now, in classical liberal thought, which had been the leading thought in the formation of America and a lot of the West post the 18th century, the idea is that there is a public realm, that is a realm that is governed by the government, a realm of the government, and there's the private realm, that's society. And really, I think this is a false distinction. Really, the government belongs to the private realm because there is no separate sphere of society that the government has. The government is simply force that has legitimacy of people in society. Different point, different day. But anyway, this is the classical formation. Now, the second wave feminists said, no, 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 no. The private realm actually is not private. It's political. It's political because the man has control over the woman and the family. So second wave feminism actually antagonized women against men and made them want to subvert the idea of the traditional family because allegedly it was oppressive. It took what should have been a cooperative enterprise, that is the family. You cannot have a family if you don't have cooperation and peace between people in that family. Some of you may have families who fight all the time, fuss all the time, and you know when that happens, things don't go well. Well, if you convince a woman that the man is her enemy and she hates him and wants to get power over him, things don't go well. The same principle is on display. And so we saw that manifest in the invocation of ideas like intersectionality, which then followed in third wave feminism to how women should view the man and also view the society. The root of all of it was the personal is political. Your family is a power structure that is a struggle between two forces, the man and the woman. And so you need to take that and use it to shape your understanding of women generally in society. And that's exactly what the third wave feminists did. They said, okay, so in the family, in the social sphere, women are oppressed by non-governmental norms that are actually political. How are they in the broader society, just outside the family sphere? And they eventually discovered we should view women in society through an intersectional lens. Now, many of you may be familiar with the idea of intersectionality, what that is. That is basically just this idea that all these different identities that you have all go into making you marginalized or not marginalized. They all are basically this big matrix of oppression. So if you are a woman and you are disabled, you are oppressed more than a woman who is not disabled. If you are a black woman and you're trans and you're disabled, you are oppressed more than a white woman who is trans and disabled. These different identities come together to shape your value in society. And women were taught to view all social relationships through that lens. So it went from we want equal rights to we want to assert privileges over the family. We want to politicize the family, which is actually a private institution, to we now want to view society as this entire game of oppression and power struggles, as opposed to what it actually is, a natural enterprise of cooperation and goodwill that assists in human flourishing. This was the gospel sold to women in the 28th century, and this is the gospel being preached to women today by a lot of feminists. Now, how does this actually lead into the rise of women doing OnlyFans and sex work? Or, for example, this entire question of what is a woman? Well, I'll tell you this much. If we start from the idea that family life is merely a power struggle, and that society is merely a power struggle, and that roles that we have in society and ideas that shape society, like men and women, are all constructed by those who have power, then there is no meaning of those things outside the power struggle. So the emphasis goes from actually understanding how things are to misunderstanding how things are, and then wanting to shape things in your image. This sort of subjectivist idea of nature is what feminism has sold women. This is why the question of what is a woman is viable under the feminist frame, under the second and third wave feminist frame, because that question presumes that what a woman is shaped by those who are in power. And so it's at the interest of the woman to then go ahead, get power, and then shape what a woman is in her own image. In fact, this is not just Christian Watt's interpretation. This is what Judith Butler, one of the premier feminist philosophers who has a lot of bad ideas, this is what she said in her book, Gender Troubles. She said that there is no set idea of what a woman is. It all depends on who's in power. It all depends on the dominant society. So if women get control of the dominant society, what happens? Well, what happens is they get to shape their perception of reality. They get to shape the idea of everything. That is why feminism has hurt women. Feminism have taken women, and in a certain sense men, out of their proper domains as individual human beings, full of complexity, full of different motivations and impulses that are different between the two sexes, that all make them who they are. And they have instead assigned all difference, assigned all distinction, and assigned all uniqueness to a societal system that seeks to oppress people, that seeks to dominate people. And they have made human beings who are social creatures, and by virtue of being social creatures, are meant to cooperate with people. They have made human beings into these sort of pinballs to be pushed down in order to get to the next level of your advancement, and that is to control the dominant society by injecting identity politics into your frame of thinking and into society. Feminism is a philosophy. Feminism, as it stands right now, is a philosophy of antagonism, of hatred, of ill will towards those who you are convinced to hate because they allegedly are part of some broader system. It is an abstract idea which removes human relationships in society from the concrete individual and puts it into this ethereal penumbra, this realm that doesn't exist, of groups, categories, and all these different things that don't actually accurately describe reality. In this sense, feminism is a philosophy that incites the individual to rebel against reality. The truth is this: to have equal rights, you must have a justification for those rights. And justifications must be built on stable ground. The problem is, feminism evolved away from the righteous cause of equal rights and became a manner of interpretation and subjectivity that is based on the winds of society. Meaning is not based on what people think a certain concept is. Meaning is based on the actual nature of a concept and the logical conclusion of that nature as undertaken by your ability to reason. In other words, everything is not up for interpretation. Everything is not relative. There are constants and there are meaning in the world. Which is one of the reasons why, by the way, if you believe that society and how women are perceived is just a matter of power struggles, you can easily say that liberating yourself from the norm of not doing sexual sex work or not being publicly nude is actually beating back against the oppressive forces that you face. You can say that having sex with 20 or 50 men, having a high body count, as is so said, is actually liberating because the idea of a woman being modest and having only one partner has been oppressing women for a very long time. You can justify not only behavior that is emotionally, mentally, and spiritually destructive to you under this frame, you can justify behavior that fundamentally undercuts what it means to be in a society. Society is based on the principle of justice. And the principle of justice very simply says that there are things you possess as a human being that cannot be infringed upon unless someone were to commit an injustice. And that is the one principle which stops someone from going into your house and killing you because they felt like it. That is the one principle that stops someone from taking your stuff because they want to. That is the one principle which constrains the whims and the passions of the human being and relegates them to your own personal thoughts and informs your conduct in a way that allows civilization to flourish. But these anti-civilizational ideas that have informed feminism and have convinced women of all these bad nonsense notions are not only threatening their understanding of reality, they are threatening the harmony, the harmonious coexistence between men and women in society. And of course, you see a backlash. This is why Andrew Tate, this is why all of these fresh and fit people, this is why all these different people who rise up in the men's rights movement actually are empowered. Because the ideas that inform feminism antagonize women against men and allowed men to become victims. Let me give you an example. When a sexual assault case happens, the default presumption is believe all women. regardless of the evidence, regardless of anything. That's the default presumption in a lot of cases. We've seen cases upon cases upon cases of men getting their lives absolutely shellacked because a woman accused them of something that we understand later that it was false. Why does that happen? Because the personal is political. Because society is a power struggle. And because men need to be punished because they have for so long dominated women in that power struggle. That is the mentality, that is the thinking that goes behind empowering women, or empowering anyone really, to an irrational extent. And in doing so, feeling benevolent about yourself. My friends, study philosophy, resist your passions, resist the temptation to be irrational, and understand the fight for equal rights is a noble one and an important one. And there's very legitimate questions as to women's role in society and how that has been formed by social perceptions. But it is incorrect in any case for any gender to assume special privileges, to assume special control over reality and meaning, and to assume a power struggle simply because people who look like them for a very long time were oppressed and attacked and maligned. We learn from the past not to repeat it. We don't learn from the past to repeat it. Stay pensive, everybody. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, comment on this video. Be sure to let me know how I did in this video. I love you guys so much, and please stay pensive. Bye, guys.